What's going on, everybody? J-How here, and in this Diablo 3 Crusader build, we're going to talk about the updated Invoker set, and things are about to get a little bit prickly, so let's take a look at this updated Thorns build in Season 6 and patch 2.4.1. First up, let's take a look at the skills. Punish with Celerity, Iron Skin with Reflective Skin, Steed Charge with Endurance, Provoke with Hit Me, Laws of Valor Invincible, Akarat's Champion with Profit, and for your passives, Iron Maiden, Fervor, Hold Your Ground, and Finery. Taking a closer look at the skills, keep in mind that this build is heavily predicated around three things: block chance, cooldown reduction, and thorns damage. So that's what we're going to be looking at when we take a look at the skills. Punish with Celerity. This says when you block with Hardened Senses, you gain 15% increased attack speed, and then also increasing your block chance by 15% by 5 seconds. So getting that block chance is a great thing to have. Iron Skin with Reflective Skin. This says while active, your thorns is increased by 300%. You're going to have high cooldown reduction, so you're going to have Iron Skin up quite a bit. And then you talk about the fact that you have 300% increased damage. It's a no-brainer here. Next up, Steed Charge with Endurance. You need mobility, and there's none better than having endurance here on Steed Charge to get in and out of danger or to get moving to where you need to go. Next up, Provoke with Hit Me. This is going to have enemies attack you. That's great because you don't want them hitting your Templar or whatever your follower might be. But the other part, gain 50% increased block chance for 4 seconds after casting Provoke. Again, this will be around quite often, and you have that increased block chance, which is huge. Next up, Laws of Valor with Invincible. You're going to get life on hit and increased attack speed on this one, so you're going to be able to stay in there, stay alive while they're hitting you, and then turn in chance to say, I'm hitting you and I'm getting some life back. So having that increased attack speed plus that life on hit is great there. Next up, Akarat's Champion with Profit. This is going to give you that increased armor, and it's going to increase your damage and increase in your wrath generation. So all around, Akarat's Champion with Profit is a great thing, and you take a look at it. The first time you take fatal damage while Akarat's Champion is active, you will be returned to full health. So having that there is very, very nice. Now, looking at the passives, everything that we just talked about, Iron Maiden, your thorns is increased by 50%. No-brainer there. Who doesn't want more thorns damage with this build? Next up, Fervor. While wielding a one-handed weapon, your attack speed is increased by 15%, and all cooldowns are reduced by 15%. That cooldown reduction, you have to have. It's so crucial to this build, plus you get that bonus of that attack speed. Next up, Hold Your Ground. You can no longer dodge, which is great, because your block chance goes up by 30%. You can see we are stacking a lot of block chance to be able to mitigate a lot of that damage, but more importantly, get cooldowns, and we'll get to that here in a second. Next up, Finery. Gain 1.5% strength for every gem socketed into your gear. This is just going to help you overall in so many facets. So first things first for the gear. Let's take a look at the most important item you're going to need. It's the hack. Now, it doesn't matter how much damage you have on the hack. It doesn't matter necessarily if it's ancient. The number one stat you need is the secondary. It goes up to 100%. 75 to 100% of your thorns damage is applied on every attack. You want to be able to have this at 100%. If you have 75% and it's ancient, it doesn't matter. You can have a terrible hack so long as that thorns damage is high. That's where your damage is going to come from. So when you're prioritizing the hack, keep in mind that thorns damage wins out against every other stat on that, including the overall damage. Now, also having cooldown reduction rolled on your hack is very important because you can get up to 10% cooldown reduction on there. So thorns damage, cooldown reduction, and everything after that. Also keep in mind that the gem that you're now going to be using in your weapon is a topaz, which adds thorns damage. And if you have the max one, that's 38,000 thorns damage. You want to have that in your weapon. Now, let's take a look at the Invoker set itself. The 2-piece set bonus says your thorns damage now hits all enemies within a 15-yard radius around you. Each time you hit an enemy with punish, slash, or block an attack, your thorns is increased by 35% for 2 seconds. So being able, you see all the skills that we have, everything that you're going to be using is going to fit directly into this build with the cooldown reduction, the thorns, and the damage there. Now, thorns damage is huge. There's going to be thorns damage on the secondary for your Invokers set. The higher the better. Keep that in mind when you're prioritizing. Hey, this gear might look marginally better in terms of damage, but if the thorns damage isn't as high as something sitting on your inventory, you might prioritize that other item higher. Now, the 4-piece bonus there. You take 50% less damage for 20 seconds after damaging an enemy with bombardment. Now, that's going to play directly into the belt that we're going to get into here in a second to be able to get that damage mitigation with that 4-piece bonus. Next up, the 6-piece bonus says the attack speed of Punish and Slash are increased by 50% and deal 800% of your thorns damage to the first enemy hit. And since you're going to be using Punish, and that's the first skill that we talked about, this is a huge bonus, that 800% of your thorns damage to the first enemy hit. And we talked about being able to increase your attack speed to get life on hit, but it's also going to play into this. And we talk about getting to a greater rift boss the first enemy hit. That's a huge amount of damage. So for the Invoker set, you're going to need the boots, pants, gloves, shoulders, helmet, and bracers there. And you'll need all 6 pieces to be able to make this work. So you can see where this is playing. Moving directly into the belt there, you can see every 6 to 8 seconds, call down bombardment on a random nearby enemy. And you take a look at the fact that we just talked about the 4-piece bonus. You take 50% less damage for 20 seconds after damaging an enemy with bombardment. That plays directly into the 4-piece bonus, and all you have to do is equip the belt. So you can see how much value this has for that damage mitigation without having to spec into that skill. So Belt of the Trove is absolutely crucial to this build to be able to stay alive. Taking a look at the chest piece, it doesn't really matter if you have the Aquila Cuirass or Heart of Iron. Obviously, if the Heart of Iron is very well rolled, you would have this on your chest piece. Now, that can go in your cube because you're going to make sure and get equal to gain thorns damage equal to 300% of your vitality. So you can see where Heart of Iron really comes into play here. Now, most of the time, the Heart of Iron is going to be in your cube because that is going to be tough to roll that high one. But depending on which one you have rolled best, wear that, put the other one in the cube. Next up, taking a look at your rings, the Justice Lantern. Gain damage reduction equal to anywhere between 45 to 55% of your block chance. This is huge, absolutely crucial. You talk about being able to have all the block chance that we've already stacked so far between the skills and everything else, and to have that damage reduction equal to anywhere between up to 55% of that, that's a huge bonus there. Next up, the Compass Rose and Traveler's Pledge. While moving, damage taken is reduced, and while standing, damage dealt is increased. And since once you get into place, you're going to stand there, swing away, and then have everything hit you, so you can see where that bonus is really going to come into play. Next up, now this is the one where things might get a little bit confusing, but we'll get to the cube here in just a moment to be able to reflect why this is going to work for you. The Spiker, the Voitoya's Spiker, however you want to pronounce that. Enemies affected by Provoke take double damage by Thorns. Now, we talked about Provoke being a talent there, and you want to be able to provoke them to have them hit you. With the high cooldown reduction, you'll be able to have this over and over again. It gives you that block chance. It gives you all kinds of benefits, and then specking that with the Spiker here, you're going to give them double damage on Thorns. So you want to provoke, provoke, provoke as much as you possibly can, so you can see where this really comes into play. Now, we do take a look at the cube now. This is where things really matter. The Akarat's Awakening is a shield you're going to put in the weapon/shield slot in your cube. Every successful block has a 25% chance to reduce all cooldowns by 1 second. Cooldown reduction is at a premium with this build, and you talk about Akarat's there because that does require the shield for some of your other talents to work. At least the Crusader shield, having this in your cube enables the rest of your build, and plus it gives you the necessary cooldown reduction that you need. So having Akarat's Awakening in your cube is 100% necessary to make this work. As we already talked about for the armor slot, Heart of Iron or Aquila Cuirass, whichever one fits into whichever one you have best rolled. Obviously you want to have as much Thorns damage as possible, so Heart of Iron generally goes in the cube here. Next up for your jewelry slot, a straight damage increase, the Convention of Elements. Going to go into the jewelry slot here, and you're going to get the most benefit there in that jewelry slot. Looking at the legendary gems, the number one gem that you absolutely want to have is the Boyarski's chip. That adds thorns damage, and that's the number one thing. You want to get this up, you want to have as much thorns damage as possible, and that's going to be crucial to your build. The other two legendary gems should look pretty familiar. Bane of the Stricken going to be there. That's going to help out immensely. And then, of course, Bane of the Trap, because you're going to be right in the thick of things, and they're going to take that extra damage because they're going to be part of that aura and under control impairing effects. So that's going to help you out pretty much there in the middle of things. Now, as I mentioned for this build, the number one thing you want to make sure of is you have thorns damage. When you're looking at your gear, you want to have thorns in there. You want to be able to proc that and to be able to have as much as possible. That is your main damage dealer. That is what enables this build to do so much. The same thing I talked about with the hack. Cooldown reduction in thorns over every other stat there. Thorns is the number one thing you want to look out for. So we talk about cooldown reduction. You want to have cooldown reduction on your shoulders, gloves, your offhand if possible, your weapon, and your rings. And then you talk about the Akarat's Awakening, cooldown reduction to be able to have your Akarat's Champion skill around for the other skills we talked about with the Provoke and with the Iron Skin. All of these play directly into thorns and your block chance and your attack speed. So having really high cooldown reduction to have all of these talents around is what really makes this build shine. So make sure that when you keep an eye on prioritizing your rolls, cooldown reduction is going to be huge there, as well as we talked about vitality with that Heart of Iron. To be able to have plenty of vitality, to be able to stack that damage there is another key factor to this build. So you can see that there's a little bit different complexities than most other standard builds out there in the sense that thorns is the number one thing, cooldown reduction is right there, and then vitality right after. So keeping that in mind when you're speccing your gear and trying to maximize the potential of the Invoker set and your Thorns build. So that's going to do it for this Crusader build guide heading into Season 6 and patch 2.4.1. Be sure and to let your friends know that you are getting a little bit prickly with the Invokers set here, and also let them know that, hey, this is probably what's going to be topping the chart in Season 6, but be sure and check back for any updates on what might be coming around differently once everything is live. Now, if you like the build or you like the video, feel free and hit that like button below because, hey, that's always appreciated. Till next time, guys, as always, happy hunting. See you again.